The biggest project in the history of independent Kenya, SGR, actually not just in Kenya but in the whole of Africa. Actually, cut that, the most expensive in the world. I understand throwing such big words that have the word world in it will make former President Uhuru Kenyatta's diehard fans disagree with me. But hey, listen, I'm right. But then again, you have to shake your head once or twice to call yourself a Uhuru Kenyatta diehard, because if you actually do, then you do agree that you are a fan of a man who publicly scratched his buttocks. The project cost Kenya a whopping $3.8 billion US, or for those of us who understand the language of money in Kenyan shillings, it was a whopping 380 billion Kenyan shillings. Yep, 90% of this was provided by a bilateral loan from the Exim Bank of China to the government of Kenya. Now, according to a report filed by the Daily Nation, it cost the government 800 million shillings to construct each kilometer of the rail. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, making the project the most expensive in the world, with this price estimated to be at least twice the international average. Now, you might want to shake your head again. So now that is established, who is this who thought it was okay for Kenya to have an SGR? Now, according to Daily Nation, Kenya ended up spending twice that money that neighboring Tanzania spent on an electric train. Remember, we got a diesel train. The Tanzanian line was also not just cheaper, but it was faster, supporting 160 kilometers per hour compared to SGRs. It was like Tanzania got the Tesla of trains and Kenya landed on the Nissan Note of the trains, but it ended up paying more. Now, the most damning of it all was that the lead engineer was awarded 5 million shillings airtime allowance in 3 years. Wait, the ridiculousness does not end there yet, because the same report indicated that the country spent 57 million shillings to provide the engineer's office with a furniture, with an additional 239 million shillings for entertainment of the lead engineer and his staff for a period of 3 years. So you might ask yourself what happened in the tendering process that saw this project jump up by that much, and was the government just watching?
Hii reli imejengwa na pesa ya Wakenya milioni 45. Yani ukihukumiwa wewe unaenda kinyonga. Tunaelewana? Wenzangu, mimi ni wa kwanza.
Wait, so the president was actually serious about prosecuting anyone who had been involved in the SGR fraud? Well, thank you, Mr. Former President. Since you can actually decide on who dies and who doesn't, here's a list of people we want you to do away with as Kenyans. Yeah. Let's first start currently with the Chelsea manager, Graham Potter. Well, we don't want Akode to die, but you can actually move her to another country. Every commodity too, we are tired, and keep it. All women want him dead. And before we forget, Samido as well should be sold to Dubai for good. Now, you have to understand that Kenya Railways Authority not being considered as an active player in the negotiations between Kenya and China over SGR is a big issue. And this is why. Under the Kenya Railways Corporation Act, Cap 397 of the Kenyan law, there are specifically 11 well-outlined functions of the corporation. 2 of them stand out. Now, the first role for the corporation is to construct or improve any railway, inland waterways, port, ferry, road bridge, building, or any other necessary or desirable works required for the purposes of the corporation. B, to operate trains and to acquire, construct, manufacture, maintain, or repair anything required for the purposes of the corporation. So in other words, the corporation should have been left to conceptualize the project, send out a tender, and approve the tenders based on who they deemed cheap and most qualified. That did not happen at all. Now, the Kenya Railways Corporation were mere spectators in the entire deal. Now, the Kenya Law Society during the period also threatened to go to court. But even as this was going on, 2 parliamentary committees had already given a green light to the project, which made no sense at all to rush to court, because whether we liked it or not, the project was going forward.
We want to thank the Chinese government for working together with us to make this dream a reality. It is our Kenyan, part of the Kenyan dream.
Fast forward to 2015, phase 1 of the Mombasa-Nairobi SGR line was opened, and in 2019, phase 2A Naivasha SGR line was also opened. Exim Bank of China announced it will finance phase 2B Naivasha Kisumu SGR line. Now, the 262 kilometers line will pass through Suswa, Narok, Bomet, Nyamira, and to end at Kisumu. Now, the design of the project included the upgrading of the section of Kisumu SGR. This section of the SGR was budgeted at 3.7 billion US dollars. Now, hold on. This is where matters start to get difficult for Kenya. Now, you see, Kenya had already promised China that the project was going to be very profitable. On paper, yes. However, in 2018, that is after the full year operation by SGR, a report by Kenya's Transport Ministry tabled in Parliament in 2018 indicated that the railway made a loss of, wait for it, 9.8 billion shillings in its first year of operation. Now remember, the Chinese looked at this figure and compared it to what the government's projection of $46.8 million profit for the following year. However, a report by the Transport Ministry this year, that was in 2021, also tabled to Parliament, says that the railway recorded a loss of $200 million over 3 years. Now, the document says that during this period, the railway generated revenues of $230.7 million US dollars, but an operational cost of $430.5 million US dollars. Well, the Chinese smelled the rat.
SGR, standard gauge railway.
Thus, when Uhuru Kenyatta and his newly found friend Raila Odinga went to China to beg for more money to complete the SGR, the Chinese refused. Rightly so. Kenya couldn't indeed justify how they were going to repay the money if SGR was not turning in profits. But well, they came back and changed the story.
We never failed in China. We never failed in China. The minister said it's just a matter of citizenship.
Now that, ladies and gentlemen, meant that the SGR had to end at Naivasha in a remote village 120 kilometers, that's about 75 miles west of Kenyan capital, Nairobi. DW called it a railway to nowhere. So what was the best alternative for the government?
Na hatusemi kwamba ufungwe. Twasema kama iwe na competition, wale ambao wanataka kupeleka mizigo yao katika SGR wapeleke, na wale ambao wanataka kupeleka kwa malori wapeleke. Ikiwa SGR is a national strategic or economic for the country, so is Kenya Airways.
Yeah, that too did not work. And if you think it stopped there, you are wrong. Because in May 2019, Kenya Railways said that children above 3 years of age had to pay for the full fare to travel on the SGR from June 1 of 2019, with the management saying that minors will also be required to present their parents' or guardians' ID as they booked, adding that this was all meant to make service delivery easy on the Madaraka Express. In a 2021, Treasury disclosed that a 1.482 billion, that's about 162 billion shillings debt from the Exim Bank of China that Kenya tapped in December 2015 had fallen due, and that the country was expected to make 30 semi-annual payments for the next 14 years. It is funny how during this period, when former president knew that things were really bad as SGR, he still beamed with confidence over the project.
Leo hii, my friend, tumefika kiwango ya 2020 where we are moving approximately 11 to 12 trains every day. My friends, we are ahead of our payment schedule. Ahead, yeah, of our payment schedule. Na hii ni mambo kama mwataka, kwa sababu hakuna kitu ya kuficha.
I'm sorry, that is a lie. That is 1 minute of your life that you're never gonna get back. How was the country ahead of its payment schedule if in the first 3 years it was loss-making? Where did this money come from? You see, President Uhuru Kenyatta lied to those two idiots laughing with him, and they lacked the bravery to ask him where the money was coming from, knowing very well that SGR made nothing did not cut even, was not cutting even during its first 3 years of operation, and up to now, it's still not cutting even. In January 2022, through an affidavit, Dr. Njoroge, former PS Transport, is on record saying that it would be in a breach of the contractual terms of the agreements if the two activists, Ms. Wanjiru Gikonyo and Khalef Khalifa, who demanded the agreement, are supplied with them. And I quote, upon the receipt of the request for information from the petitioners, that is Ms. Wanjiru Gikonyo and Khalef Khalifa, Kenya Railways Corporation responded and explained that the contracts of the projects to which information is being or was being requested are between the governments of the People's Republic of China and the government of Kenya. Yeah, I know, confusing. And you would like to think that the former president Uhuru Kenyatta looked at this issue the same way we do, but no.
For those kind of reasons, I will borrow.
Okay.
Good friend.
Recently.
I will.
We'll continue to borrow. Yeah, we are already in the mat. Can somebody give this guy one more time so that we can get messed up together with the rest of us once we cannot pay this debt? I mean, pardon me here, because it looks as if we are now talking about debt. But for you to understand better that the kind of mud that we are in with SGR, you have to understand this. China accounted for 60% of the total external loan repayments. With all this going on, you would like to think that the National House would come up in and help us stop the president from overborrowing. This guy's, yes.
It is up to 6 be part of the bill. As many as other people say aye. As many as come to the bill say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Speaker, 7 more to move. That clause 41 be part of the bill.
As of 2022, May last year, Afrista was supposed to hand over the running of SGR to Kenya Railways Corporation, and they refused back. Now, Parliament last year revealed that Kenya had not paid 38 billion to Afrista, which is majority owned by China Road and Bridge Corporation, CRBC, that was constructed in May 2017 to run the passenger and cargo trains on the SGR. Yeah, the same way we pay traffic marshals to guide traffic below traffic lights in the city. To show you why it is such a bad idea to depend so much on one lender for your development, Kenya realized that debt repayment to China was going to be an uphill task, especially after the economy contracted heavily in 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. So what they did was write to China and ask if they could start repayment of the SGR debts in December of 2021. Well, you know, China readily accepted and said, yes, you're our friend, and of course we will do this to Kenya. Don't worry. In fact, do not even pay right now. Pay the debt in 2025. No, they did not. What China did was to effectively freeze disbursements of active loans to Kenyan projects in the wake of differences over Nairobi's bid to extend the debt repayment holiday to December. According to China's state authorities, the construction of the standard gauge railway line had driven Kenya's economic growth by 1.5%, creating 46,000 jobs for local residents. Now, anybody listening to this, go tell China, we haven't seen those jobs. We haven't seen the growth. They did not donate this to us. We are paying heavily for this. So please get off telling us exactly how many jobs you've created. And the 1.5%, we haven't felt it. What needs to come clear, what Kenyans need to understand, is the intended purpose of the SGR loan, who the contractor was on behalf of the Kenyans, whether Kenya received the entire amount, and who has so far profited from the SGR loans, the interest rate of repayment. What interest has been paid so far, the portion of the Kenyan budget that is used to serve the SGR debt, the creditors, the conditions, and how Kenya is financing repayment.